Thank you. Hallelujah. Wow. It's really great to be here. I hope you can see how excited I am. It is really exciting to come here. I really treasure it. I treasure you guys. I know it's for sure over 20 years. I don't even know how many years I've been coming here, but it's always a pleasure. And I actually, right now I'm going back and forth to Ukraine. Every other month I'm there and then back here. And don't feel sorry for me because it's a wonderful privilege to be able to go there and to help them. And I'm blessed. Many churches over there, they've told me, Ed, we will never forget the people that came when we needed it the most. And when I go, I'm going with you guys because you're supporting us, helping us, and so I'm really, really thankful. In fact, I'm so thankful that I wanted to brag a little bit about how great my life is right now. I actually had a friend of mine drive through Barrie a little while ago, and he said to me, he was, wanted to meet me for coffee, so I met him. And then I said, what are you doing in Barrie? He said, well, I'm driving, we just opened our cottage. I said, oh, you have a cottage? And he said, yeah. He said, oh, you and your family should come out sometime to see it. So we go out to see him. And it's on an island. It's just the most beautiful place you could ever imagine. And I'm just there the whole time walking around like, wow, like people actually live like this? And the water and everything. And then he said to me while we're there, maybe, my wife and I are going to be away from the 20th to the 27th. Maybe you'd like to come and use the cottage while we're away. I'm like, do dogs like bones? Like, seriously. So we went up yesterday, made ourselves at home, but and because it's on an island, there's a little motorboat. So 5:30 this morning, I'm in the little motorboat making my way. I should have taken a picture, but and then driving all the way here from Parry Sound. But I just say that really, I wanted you guys to know, like, I love being here, and I would do anything to come here and be with you because you guys have supported us, as I said, for such a long time. When I was told by your church that you have this theme of prayer right now, and if I could focus on that, I said absolutely. But usually I'm running around talking about everything God is doing in Ukraine and other places, and I don't generally talk about prayer. It's not something that I specialize in. However, with many years of ministry and traveling around the world, obviously I've come to know a little bit about our relationship with God and communicating with Him. And it is a privilege for me to share some of those things with you guys today. When I think about prayer, sometimes I feel a little guilty, as some of you may as well. I think, man, I don't spend enough time as I should. In fact, one of my friends, pastor from Halifax, he was telling me once, he said to me, Ed, do you know why Canadians don't pray? And I'm like, what? He said, no, Canadians generally, they go to church, they don't pray very much. And I said, why not? He said, because they don't believe it will really make a difference. If they did believe that it would make a difference, they would pray more. And that really struck me, and I remember it to this day. And I think what I wanted to share with you this morning is that prayer makes a difference, but prayer is different for every single person. This is the great thing about God. Our lives are individual. Like we are working out our own plan, like God's plan for us. We're working it out with Him, and it's individual to us. The amazing thing is that God's will for every single person is individual. It's different. If that's God's will for you, that doesn't mean necessarily that that's God's will for everyone else. When I became a missionary, I was so excited. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't deserve this. Like, this is too great, And I was so excited to be a missionary. And then I thought, well, of course, everybody wants to be a missionary, right? Like, how could you not want to be a missionary? And gradually I realized not everybody wants to be a missionary. And it was like a big surprise for me, And but the thing that it taught me was that God's will for each of us is a little different. And that's the amazing part. And when we as religious people don't kind of start to force, this is God's will for you, or this, but actually help people just to explore that, it's great. The amazing thing about God is so open to us. God's not trying to make us feel guilty because we don't spend enough time in prayer. I know when I pray, my prayer is generally like, the Bible says pray without ceasing, right? That's more like I'm praying all the time. If I'm walking down the street, I'm talking to God. If I'm driving in my car, I'm talking to God, right? And I remember once I was driving in Ukraine, and I'm driving along, and I've got like a 5-hour drive. You can imagine, I'm by myself, and I'm just driving and driving. There's no radio stations or any that, are good to listen to. So I'm driving along and just praying and praying, talking to God. All of a sudden, God starts to talk to me about being honest. That we should just be honest. And I'm listening to Him, and God is kind of saying, like, just rather than trying to think about how to respond to people, just tell them the truth. Say the truth. And I was so overcome with this. I was thinking about, you don't want to be rude to people, but you do need to tell the truth. And I'm driving along, and I'm driving, I'm just thinking, and I'm praying, And all of a sudden, this Ukrainian policeman jumps out from behind the bushes with his little wand and stops my car, right? So in Ukraine, a lot of times they didn't have cars, but they would stand on the side of the road with a radar. And it was hard to know what the speed limit actually was. And so I pull over to the side of the road. I'm thinking, oh no, like what's going to happen now? So he comes up to the window. I'm sitting there. He comes up. He says, "Documenty, пожалуйста." Like and he's asking me for my documents. So I give him my documents. And then he's standing there looking at them. And he says to me, he asks me, "Why are you going so fast?" And I said, actually, the reason I'm going so fast is because no one flashed their lights at me to tell me that you were standing here. Because I was so struck with this, you need to just tell the truth, right? Well, you had to see the policeman. He was standing there, and then he turned right around and he bent over, and he was laughing so hard he couldn't turn back and look at me again. And I know what he's thinking. He's because my accent in their language, and it probably sounded probably the first time he'd ever heard it, because everybody's always making up something. And finally, he just hands my documents without even looking at me and just says this, just go. And I'm driving away. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for that great advice, But I really genuinely tell that story because I want you to know that God cares about even little things. He's interested in our lives. He wants us to come to Him. The devil, on the other hand, is telling you God's angry at you, or He's not satisfied with how you live, or he's got something that's not right, exactly right about. But that's not true. God is just waiting for us to come to Him. And so I just want to encourage you this morning. No matter what situation you're in, just come to Him and open your hearts to Him. The verse that I chose this morning, when I think about prayer, is from Ephesians chapter 3, and it's verse 20 and 21. And to me, this kind of captures to me what prayer is all about. It says, "Now to Him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we ask or think." He is able to do way more than we can even ask for. According to the power that works in us. To him be glory in the church by Jesus Christ to all generations, forever and ever. Amen. The power that works in us, and to him be the glory. We were singing this morning, you are worthy of it all. He's worthy of it all, right? To him is the glory. I remember one time, I don't know, like if you speak in front of a crowd, you tend to get a bit nervous. I'm sure you're like me, and you think, I want to inspire people. I want to help people. I want to do something that would be significant for you. And I remember once feeling very timid. And there are times in our lives we wonder, am I really doing something good? Like, is it in realistically? I remember a pastor praying over me as I was going out on the mission field one time, and he was just laying hands on me, and all the deacons came up and they're laying their hands on me and they're praying. Man, they were praying like they were sending the Apostle Paul out or something, and I was standing there like, guys, take it easy, like I'm just a regular guy from a tomato field in Leamington, I mean, do you understand what's going on? But God spoke to me really clearly after that, and he said, you can go forth boldly to me because you go in my name for my glory and my honor. We go in his name. And when we go in his name for his glory, God does exceedingly abundantly all that we ask or pray. If you want to bring the first picture, I want to share some stuff. Oops. That's not the right picture, but it was in a folder that was Kortright 24. Is that the okay, let's see what's here. This is my family, who I am so blessed by, and I actually wanted to tell a story about my daughter there, Steffi, who's 7 years old now. And my mom prayed for me for 20 years. I was living not a holy life at all, and the entire 20 years from the time I was 12 and I started to drink alcohol until I was 32, my mom prayed for me every day. And I think about that, I'm not the type of person that is so disciplined in prayer to pray every day. And I wonder how she did it. She didn't give up. I mean, if you think about it, 20 years every day. And the lows were very low. I can imagine her feeling about praying for me, but she continued to pray. And so I encourage all of you today, if you're praying for a loved one, a child, a relative, anyone, just continue to believe. Believe that God can do something great, and don't give up. No matter what, don't give up, because you never know whether God might do something exceedingly abundantly, even above what you're praying for. There we go. So there's Steffi. And I've been praying for my daughters. Sometimes I have to get down in front of God and, Lord, forgive me not for praying regularly like I should for my children. But when we do that, God just opens up. And it's like you never lost a day, right? And so we continue to pray for our kids. And a little while ago, my daughter, who's 7, she is the result of a mother who prays continuously for more children, even though her husband doesn't really want that. No, I'm kidding. But what a blessing she is to us. And just a little while ago, I'm not sure what your theology is on this, but a little while ago, she came to us and she asked us if she could get baptized. And I'm looking at her, and she's 7 years old. I'm like, do you even know what that means? Like what it's for? And so I asked her, and I found out that she knows more than I do. And I was just blown away. It was this exceedingly abundantly more. And I started to talk with her, and she said she wanted to be baptized, and so this was the leader of the children's ministry at the church we're at right now, and she said, I was so honored to baptize your daughter. And just before she was baptized, they asked her if she wanted to say something, and my little daughter, Steffi, she says, yes, I do. And they handed her the mic a little bit closer. I know that I have sinned. She said, but I know that God has forgiven me, and I want to follow him for the rest of my life. Wow, it was like, me, several other people just crying there. And sometimes a child can show us, Jesus said, right, the kingdom of God is like a child sometimes, just that innocence and that faith, yeah. So if you go to the next picture, when I started working in an orphanage, and I used to come back here, I was working in an orphanage in Ukraine. Many of you know there were about 126 children there with severe disabilities who were abandoned by their parents. We just went in there, believed that God could do something with them, felt called to help change these kids' lives, and we knew that they were all, just with not just the horrible place they were living in, not just the really severe disabilities, but also abandoned by their parents. And we knew how, we could sense how they were feeling, and we would tell them, you did not come to this world from your parents. You came through your parents from God. God sent you here. And if he sent you here, he has a plan for your life. And we've seen so many miracles. I could go on and on and on all morning about different things. I just brought this one up last night, and this is, since I was here last time, one of the boys, his name is Anton Cole, and he won the gold medal at the World Championships for swimming, the para-swimming championships. And if you can see on the right there, he set a world record for the swimming that he does. Amazing guy. We have 3 of those children now from that orphanage that will be in the Paralympics in Paris this coming year. Yeah, and we have several kids that are, they've won amazing awards, and many of them now are in Canada. I think I was telling last time about one of the girls that's come to Canada now and the great things that's happening in her life. But again, just exceedingly abundantly above even what we dreamed, even what we thought God might be able to do in those children's lives. It's been even greater than that. Next picture, please. So I'm traveling back and forth to Ukraine every other month, and we're taking groceries to people. People over there, especially in the war zones, don't have access to enough food, and even if they do, bringing them 2 weeks worth of groceries is a big blessing in their lives, because it some funds that they would be able to use for something else like medicine and different things. So it's such an amazing thing just to bless them. And we always tell them when we give them the groceries, this is not from us. God told us to give this to you. It's from him. And many times people are just in tears. We have a chance to talk with them. Several people have prayed with us and asked Jesus to come into their hearts. Just a real blessing there. And since the war started, we have given out groceries, 2 weeks worth of groceries, to over 200,000 families in Ukraine. Absolutely unbelievable. If someone would have told me before the war started that we families, I would have said that's really hard to believe. And so what God has done since that started has been absolutely amazing. And of those 200,000 groceries given out to families, over 40,000 people have prayed with us. And just a real miracle, again, over and above what we even asked for. Talking about prayer, I thought about something a while ago. When I was in Ukraine, because my grandparents came from Ukraine. My grandparents were Mennonites, but most of the Mennonites in Canada came from, some people are nodding their heads, that area in Ukraine. I'm going to go with a handheld, or okay. You can probably hear me with that. There we go. Okay. So I was thinking about my ancestors coming from Ukraine, and not my grandfather, but my great-grandfather, I found out, in Ukraine before 1925, when my grandfather came to Canada, he was a pastor in the Mennonite church there in Ukraine. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, I'm sure he must have prayed for the Ukrainian people, right? Like if you think about it, if he's a pastor, of course he did. He didn't just pray for, the people in his church. He prayed for the people around him. And then war came, and everything fell apart, and the communities were destroyed, and his children left to another country. The other ones were taken to Siberia. He passed away, and before he passed away, he must have thought, but I prayed for the people of Ukraine. I prayed that God would somehow, through us. And then I thought, just 100 years later, his great-grandson is traveling around the country doing all this work, and I realized God's answering his prayers, right? Can you imagine that? Like, to God, that 100 years, that's nothing, right? But to him, it must have looked like maybe God wasn't answering his prayers, and yet here we are 100 years later, seeing an amazing kind of revival happening all around Ukraine because of the situation. Not so much because of the situation, but because of the love that we're able to give to people and their response to it as we go. Next picture. We prayed for the children, that God would give us an avenue to help kids all over Ukraine. Some of you know at Christmas time every year, we do this Joyful Christmas. We actually started about 23 years ago taking children to McDonald's for a Happy Meal at Christmas time. And some of you may know this, but in Ukraine, McDonald's is the elite place to eat. Like, ladies actually get dressed up in evening gowns to go to McDonald's because it's, for them it's very expensive. And so the orphan kids that we were helping would never get to go there. And so the first year, I took 26 children to McDonald's for a Happy Meal. They were just shaking in their seats, before the food came. They were just so excited. They couldn't imagine that they were in McDonald's, and they'd been waiting for this all their lives, and you're kind of like, hey, don't get too excited, But it was so amazing just to bless them in that way, and I started to share that with people, and I started to pray that God would, continue to use us with these kids. And every year, almost every year since then, we have blessed over 3,000 children at Christmas time because of the giving of Canadians just to bless kids over there. And this past year, because most of their McDonald's restaurants were closed, we actually delivered the Happy Meals right to the kids inside the churches. This picture was taken in a church where they had 2 different services. There were around 70 children in each service. They delivered the Happy Meals to them, and they shared with them the gospel, like a whole play about the birth of Christ, and they had it all set up, and our workers are phenomenal. Like, they would have, Mary and Joseph, and, they're all up there, and they're doing the whole thing. And then they would say, and then these 3 people came from the east, and in would walk Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Pluto. And all the kids would be looking at, no, it's not them. Oh, and then they would leave, and then the 3 wise men would come in. Just amazing. And the kids, it's so interesting in a country where children didn't even really know what Christmas was all about. And it was so amazing to share with them, why we celebrate Jesus' birthday after all this time and who he is. And in this church right here, where this picture was taken, Liana, one of our workers, stood up in front of them, just shared a little bit. And she just felt called to ask them if they would like to pray to confess their faith in Jesus Christ, and if they would, just to put up their hand. And she said every single hand in the place went up. She was thinking maybe a few would, but every single hand. And then in the next service, she did the same thing, and every hand went up. It was just a real moment for us of being able to help these children who are living, obviously, in a very difficult time right now. Next picture. This is from the summer camp last summer. I took this picture. Right now we have summer camps going on all across Ukraine. And these numbers sound crazy, but we're doing over 2,000 children this summer for a week-long summer Bible camp in different areas across Ukraine. One of the camps, just 2 weeks ago, the children were outside at the church, and a missile came, and within their sight, sound and sight, hit an apartment building nearby, and there were about 14 people who were killed, and the children basically witnessed the whole thing. And so it was extremely traumatic. But the pastor sent me a note and said, Ed, what an amazing thing it was that we were with them right when that happened. We were able to share with them. We were able to talk with them. We were able to hug them, hug together, and just really share God's word to them and comfort them, and words of care and love. And it was an amazing thing, actually. They said that the timing was such that they could be with those kids right at that time. So, go to the next picture. I'm flying through. This is kind of like Uncle Ed's slideshow. I wanted to share just one more thing. So this story starts out with this lady. Her name is Carolyn, and she's right here in the front. She's from Alliston, Ontario. She's been over in Ukraine even from before the war started with us. She's been there. She stayed there through the whole thing. And God spoke to her a little while ago about that she should start to buy houses, because houses there are really cheap. So, for example, this house here she bought for $3,000, and it includes the land with a big space for gardens and everything. So she bought the house with the land, and then she ended up buying 2 more houses because God was speaking to her about continuing, and that these houses would be for people who lost their homes, and for people who, maybe seniors who were abandoned because of the situation with war and everything. And so she started just feeling that God's call, and we started to help her. And then the homes were renovated to get ready for the people that God was going to send there. And then I was traveling back and forth. If you go to the next picture. So the last time when I left Canada to go over there, we were delivering groceries right in the war zone. And you're about 7 kilometers from where the fighting is. So every 3 minutes you can hear a loud explosion. But just being there, traveling to different villages and handing out groceries. But before I left, I said to this Ukrainian group in Barrie, I told them, I'm going to be over in Ukraine in the area of Kupiansk, it's called, near the front line. And so if you guys can pray for me, because I know you have like a cell group, if you could pray for me while I'm there. And she said, of course we will. Her name was Maya. Maya then prayed with her group, and there was a girl in her group who was from Ukraine. And she said to Maya, she said, did you say Kupiansk? And she said, yeah. Well, that's in the war zone. And she said, yeah. Well, that's where my grandmother is. And we haven't been able to contact her for 3 months. We heard that she broke her leg or something, and we've been trying to reach her, but in the chaos, we haven't been able to reach her. Do you think Ed could maybe go? And so they sent me the address, and this grandmother's address, and so while we were there, we were handing out groceries, and I had this address in my pocket. If you go to the next picture, we stopped at a church. This is a church in Kupiansk, and basically this is one of the deacons standing over here on my left, and Bob Jones, who's from Alberta, with me there on the right. There, just not too long before that picture was taken, there was a missile that hit just behind the building. And it was a real miracle because just before it hit, there were the pastor, his wife, his daughter, two of the deacons. They were all standing behind the church there. And if you can see just behind Bob Jones there, it's like a big hole in the ground where the garage is. And so you can work on a car from underneath. You know, it was like a hole. And the pastor parked his daughter's car there. His wife and his daughter then went into the church. One of the deacons went down under the car to do the work. And the other deacon, this guy here beside me, went into the building to make some pierogies in the microwave. So he's inside the building. And right when this happened, then the missile hit, and the pastor was killed immediately. But all the other people that were there were saved because they were standing either in the pit or on the other side of the wall. And it was amazing. Like, they were just telling the story of how their lives were saved. And I'm thinking, same thing you're thinking, well, this is horrible, and the pastor was killed. But then they started to talk about their pastor and the type of person he was, the life he lived, just honoring him. And he was an amazing man of God that did so much for that community there. And then I said to the deacon, I pulled out the little piece of paper I had, and I said, do you know where this is, this address? He said, yeah, that's fairly close to the war zone, but we can go there. So we took off. If you go to the next picture, we came up to this house, and this was the address, 55, and there were several homes that had been bombed out and different things around it, but this house was standing fine, and I was yelling from the outside to see if the grandmother was there, but there was no sound, there were no neighbors. So I checked the gate here, and it was open. So I walked up to the door of the house, and I walked up to the door, knocked on the door, nothing. I yelled, nothing. So I checked the door. The door was open. And I walked in, and here was, her name is Babushka Shura, lying in the house, dying. She had a note beside, if you go to the next picture, she had a note beside her that said, when I die, call this person, like just thinking they're going to find her dead. What had happened, she had broken her hip, and because of falling outside, and then she was 89 years old, and she made her way crawling and got into the house somehow, and then was just lying there and had written this note. So if you go to the next picture, you'll actually see her. This is her there. And so I'm there with her, and I'm telling her, your granddaughter from Canada sent me here. And she's looking at me like, my granddaughter from Canada sent you? She's looking at me like I'm some kind of angel. Maybe I'm taking her, But I'm like, no, seriously. And I just want to pray with you. And so we prayed together there, and I said, just such an honor to be here and to have found you. For me, really. She looked at me, she said, I know two prayers. I know the Lord's Prayer and one other prayer. And it was basically like, God, help me. And then she looked at me, and I'll never forget it. In all my life, she looked at me and she said, I just prayed yesterday. She prayed yesterday. And God already had all these things lined up. All these things were already done by God to answer her prayer that day. And I said to her, we're going to take care of you. We're going to, I invited the deacon in and, talked with her. We're going to get some doctors to come and look at you. We're going to help you. You're going to be amazed at what's going to happen next, And as we were driving away, and I knew the deacon was going to take care of things, driving away, and all of a sudden it hit me. Carolyn's house. She's been preparing this house because God told her that people were going to need to. So I contacted Babushka Shura again, and I asked her if she would like to go to this house that we've prepared for people. And within a week, she was at the house. If you go to the next picture, that's her. And just her life has been completely changed. And Carolyn messaged me a little while ago and said, Babushka Shura is learning the guitar now. She wants to learn how to play the guitar. And you know, I realized something. God, He's like scheming. He's like the Jehovah schemer. That's my name for Him now. Like, He's scheming things right now to answer your next prayer. He's already working right now, just like He was for her. He's working right now to answer your next prayer. Thank you very much.